What's up, everybody? It's me, Stephen Billings, Andrew Cabral over there. And we're here once again to talk to some lovely people. And of course, we've had them on multiple times before. They're to me, Andrew, I don't know about you, is one of our favorite people to bring on the show.
Indeed. They do grace us with their presence, taking some time out of their busy schedules and life and work and all that kind of stuff to talk to us. And they did pick the most opportune time because they've got some new news that dropped very recently, about a day or so ago, depending on when this drops.
Well, it'll be quickly. So yeah, about a day or so ago.
So it works out for us in terms of figuring out things to talk about.
Yeah, well, got a whole year's worth of things to talk
about.
Very
true.
Let's stop teasing it, even though they see a thumbnail and they know what it is. But with us once again is John Morrissey and Sam Dunn from Indicator. What's up, guys?
Hi.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. Well, good morning for us.
Afternoon for you. To keep me warm.
Yes. Usually I would be drinking a coffee, but I had a coffee last night. I was like, I drink a coffee in the morning like I do usually. And then I got to late last night and I was like, I need another coffee. So I was like, I don't want to have 3 coffees in like a shorter amount of time because I've been cutting back on caffeine. So So I'm just doing like soda.
Well, you'll get your caffeine. I had 2 Diet Cokes late at night to keep me going. But
I'm offended.
Okay, of course you are.
I work for Pepsi, guys. So yeah. You guys, which way, Pepsi or Coke? Either you.
That's the ultimate.
I don't
question.
drink a lot of that stuff, if I'm honest.
No,
I even just do decaf coffee.
I get you. Hey,
I don't know what to say.
You don't have to tell me. You're living a better life.
You're much better than us.
Yeah, I used to drink a lot more soda, but in recent days I've been able to cut back to 1 a day. So this is the one for today.
Very good. Very good. I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's I've lost some weight recently, which is good. Mostly in the beard. I cut the beard down.
Nice. But, it does take off some weight.
Yeah,
it does take off some weight.
But yeah, we're here again. Let's do this. So we brought you guys back as usual to do a little recap on this year, this coming past year, 2023, and then maybe just a little bit of talk about what's been announced for 2024 and maybe beyond. Let's see where you guys go. Sometimes you guys give us some exclusives. We'll see. Yeah. I don't know anything.
Know what might slip out. Yeah.
Something, I get to talking about stuff. Something slips out, and I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, Stephen's ever the inquisitor. Ever digging.
I try.
Looking for that gold.
That's what you got to do.
Well, I'm not going to push it. It'll be all up to you guys. It's not my fault. But all right. So, last year, the end of 2022, we know that there was a lot going on. And this particular set was meant to come out in 2022, but it made its way into 23. And
you're going to take us back there. This is like trauma.
I'm sorry, guys.
Therapy, Sam.
I know. It keeps getting brought up, but
even
though it's trauma, it was a mammoth set, and I think well worth it once it came out. And that is the Michael J. Murphy set. Yes, that one. Yeah, we're bringing it back up.
It's a thing of amazing beauty. I think. I mean, I know that we put it together, but I have a certain distance on it now. It was a hell. It was like Fitzcarraldo, it was like dragging it over the mountain.
Yes,
but we did it, and it is amazing because it's just so great that someone of his stature, which is to say no one really knew of him, can be celebrated in that way. And we, within our means, did everything we could to make it as great as it could possibly be. And I think it's, with that distance and a bit of objectivity, I've popped it in the player a couple of times and I thought, that's pretty good.
We did something here.
Yeah. I mean, the films are great. I mean, it's he's an acquired taste, but I think I just think it's amazing, really, that there's this area of what we do, this sort of non-mainstream space, can still keep giving these extraordinary things. It's not just what we're doing; it's what everyone else is doing. Whether it's in the States or the UK. But there's never a month goes by without going, "Wow, that's I'm going to have to get that. That's incredible." And for me, it's always those things that I didn't really know about before, or that I maybe I knew something about, but I thought, when would I ever see that?
Yeah.
And the fact that they're all coming out in these glorious editions is great. So that was our offering in that area.
Oh yeah, well, we say it every time you come on. That I think the main factor you guys have embraced is that discovery factor. You want to you're helping guide people's minds in a way, and I think that whenever we talk about like what a label does when it comes to these like discovery, I think we always talk about like our point of view of like discovering something, but also like in a wider scope. Like it's also in a way like making sure we remember history properly is another thing too. Because I think when it comes to learning about film and its history, we tend to hit we hit the pinpoints of like the most popular thing that allowed itself to become written in history pretty easily. But then a lot of this stuff drops off and doesn't get talked about, and it's mostly because of accessibility. There's no way to know that it existed because nobody has a way to watch it. And so
it's kind of chicken and egg as well, because the lack of knowledge around that given film or work perpetuates the same problem, which is to say, if no one really knows it's out there, or if it's difficult to even start tracking the rights or to find the materials, it continues to remain unseen. So it sort of becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So it has to be quite a sort of proactive endeavor, really. But yeah, I mean, Michael J. Murphy, as you've said, that's probably the height of that in terms of what we've been doing. But it is sort of what we strive to do on a fairly regular basis, really, to sort of try and remap that terrain, kind of change up the canon, as it were.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you can't. Spielberg? No, what are you talking about? Michael J. Murphy was out right around this time. Like,
right.
Like you gotta like throw him in there now. And funny enough, like everybody's letterboxed end of the year things came out, and guess who was my most watched director? The guy with the 20-something film box set. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, so he was my most watched director. And along with the Randolph Scott, because Criterion had put out a set. Re-up their set, but I watched your set to prepare to talk about their set.
A lot of Bud Bedecker content going around.
Yes,
from everyone.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I guess it's probably as good a transition as one can make here. My letterboxd most watched director was Jean Roland, and that was all because of Indicator. Really preparing for our show, and then watching and then getting all of your releases and stuff. And that was another one that kind of goes hand in hand, I think, with Michael J. Murphy, for me personally, of someone who I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about his work, knew nothing about the fantastique and that whole genre of films, and just how unique his filmmaking was, and how unique his career was. Its ebbs and flows and things like that, and how he was rather unappreciated during his time, and then of course being rediscovered now more so by modern audiences. And now we've got the Blu-rays, we've got the 4K editions and all that kind of stuff. And speaking of 4K, last year was the year in which you guys dove into that newish format. I know it's been around for quite a few years now, but you guys delving into it and getting into all of the ins and outs and technical world that brings with it.
How's that been going?
Oh, good. I mean, John, do you want to say anything about the sales on the 4Ks?
It's I mean, interestingly enough, we did some analysis quite recently, and Roland has really really kicked it off for us in that arena, and it seems to be getting stronger and stronger. So obviously, where possible, we are trying to get the rights for a lot of the movies going forward in 4K. But it is proving very difficult, particularly with the studios. They just don't seem interested at all. But yeah, in terms of, I mean, the response we've had to the newsletter that went out yesterday was fantastic. And it's just the Roland, that it's going down that hill. It's like the snowball down the hill. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I think that's testament to, what Sam's put together right from the very start. Really, I mean, the quality is well, you've seen it yourself. Is exceptional, and the reviews have been, have reflected that. So, and we've got a lot more Rolands to come, which I'm sure People will be very
just
pleased
keeps
to hear.
rolling.
Yeah, it keeps rolling.
Keeps rolling and rolling.
Well, yeah. I listened to your appearance on the Indicator Cast. Shout out to them guys. We love them guys.
Yeah.
And you talked about the Roland films, and how that, you know, I think I don't know if this is your exact number, but you're looking at around 25 Roland films in total.
I think it's maybe close to 20. But
20. Okay.
Maybe I did say 25, but we have a little extra little bubble of Euro horror-y kind of films that are associated in terms of how we license them.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, but they're all the plan is to bring all of those where possible, where materials permit, through to UHD. It
Awesome.
might not be all of them in the final analysis, but we're actually busy trying to find one of the negs for one of the films, which I won't mention just yet. But if we can find them and we can get that done, that will be very exciting. That's actually a non-Roland film.
Yeah. And during your conversation with the guys over there at Indicator Cast, they brought up the idea that initially you thought about doing this as a box set, like a grand box set, which, you know, if anybody knows, I'm a box set fiend. Yes. Yeah, I love it. I love box sets. I love a great box set. You guys do some of the best box set work, and so of course that excites me. Now I had an idea. I didn't know if you'd thought about or would even be able.
Is this
to
the one
do.
Where we turn back time and we do a box set? Is it?
Well, there is the whole Harry Potter element. We could do a time turner thing. I thought about that as well, but I was like, they're from the UK. They don't want to do some Harry Potter thing. They're sick of Harry Potter. So, but some other companies, especially Vinegar Syndrome, they're known for doing this. Is the thought ever come into your mind that, okay, say you put all your Rollins out and you got them all, they're great. And then after that, you could for collectors, people like me that are crazy for box sets, come out with a kind of like a couple different volumes or box cases that you could put these releases that you've already put out in as like back engineering into making them into like a couple volumes of a box set for these Roland releases. What is that something you've thought about, something you could maybe do?
I think it is something that we've sort of we've knocked a few ideas around. It's a tough one. I mean, I think some people in the past, maybe in the music world and the comics world, as well as the video publishing world, maybe put one of the volumes of a given series out with a box with some kind of like foam packing to keep the single volume in place, and then you retrospectively add them in. Or I mean, I don't think we can say either way whether we will or won't do something like that. But it's definitely something we can think about, because I think we know when in the final analysis they're going to be looking really nice when they're all together. Those releases.
Because like I said, Vinegar Syndrome kind of does this. I just bought one of their slipcase boxes for the two the two highway movies. What is it?
Freeway.
Freeway, not Freeway.
Freeway.
They put out like a Freeway double pack box for the two movies they've already released, and I thought, man, that I'm about to talk to them guys. All them Roland films. If it's 20, maybe you could do like 5 in each or something like that. You could do 21.
Imagine. I was almost thinking of like breaking
the slab.
What is so interesting about Jean Roland is that his career, like I said, kind of evolved and transformed over time. You could almost break down each box into like different eras. You know what I mean? Like his earlier work is so unique. Like his first couple of films are kind of relatively similar to one another. Just watching them, and then you got like a mid-70s type of vibe where you kind of really got into the whole setting things in castles and weird things happening in castles, and then you have kind of his more adult things like later on, and kind of even weirder things, to put that into perspective, in the early 80s and stuff. But just the idea of breaking it down to like different eras of Jean Roland's career.
But they're numbered, Andrew. Do we want to really take them out of? I mean, they have
but I meant like that's the thing with Jean Roland, is that when his career kind of went, you know what I mean? Like his first couple of films put in one box, then the next era in one box. So in a way, they would still be numbered in the order.
I know.
For
I was
those
just
who are
making sure that
OCD
you
about
didn't
that.
forget that they're numbered and that we
Oh
really
no.
can't. If we took them out of order, you would just
Who could do
upset
that?
yourself.
The thing is, yeah, even like while buying them, because I'm notorious for kind of being patient and kind of waiting much later, I almost want to buy them in the order of which like the movies came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm
Oh,
almost like that.
Well,
but
you're
I
gonna be.
I know
You're,
you
I was
guys
gonna
put
say
them out in
you're
whatever
gonna
order.
be upset because I think they're already all over the place.
Yeah, that's
we've
why I
definitely
would
got
have to get them
some
while I
what do
can.
you call spanners in the works on that one.
Yeah.
Mm.
But but make
That
sure you go get
Fascination?
Fascination because I'm hearing that it's starting to sell out pretty quickly in general.
It's pretty much. I think there might be some copies left at Amazon in the US. But
there you go, Andrew. You better get on top
Yeah,
of it because we were just
ironically, I told that to
talking about it.
Steven. I told that to Steven right before you guys showed up here. I'm like, I know Amazon still has it here in the US, and I may have to grab it because I've been
Yeah.
hearing rumors.
I think that would be wise.
Yeah, I'm one of those people where when I start hearing those things, those whispers, I get my anxiety goes up.
Sets in.
I'm the same.
Panic sets in, yeah.
Well, I'm
And-
showing off all the different
Yes, you are.
fantastic artworks
For those of you
on
watching.
the front of these
Yeah.
releases.
They do all have great,
You know,
fantastic artwork,
yeah.
and I was also just rather fascinated just how solid they are and kind of heavy they are, even though they're all so thin. It just
Yeah.
feels like
Yeah.
like
Well,
there's
we
something
really wanted to
heft
do
to them.
something like the old road game set and a lot of the Sweet Charity. We wanted to do something that felt as deluxe as it were as those, but took up less shelf space. So to try and keep the quality, but just reduce the volume, really. So because I guess we've all got the same problem, right? We've all got these shelves that
Of
are
course.
heaving and bursting, and
You see
I
the
think the
shelves
last
in
thing
my
we're gonna
background, and there
Yeah.
isn't really much room. If any.
no, I've got boxes over here that you can't
Yeah.
see. It's the unimpressive side of the room over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the shelves around me as
Yeah,
well.
we
You always
talked
run out.
We talked about it, I think, last year, right around the time last year when the first announcements were coming out. We talked about how these cases really do help you with the shelf. And I
And
just think that it's just a unique step for your 4K releases, I think.
Yeah,
too.
they
It
do
just-
differentiate from the Blu-rays.
That's
I think that
Yeah.
which is kind of a unique thing because oftentimes you get a recycling of packaging. Blu-ray and 4K will look relatively the same. They'll just change the color of a case or something like that. As opposed to these are actual size differences you can notice on a shelf, so you know distinctly which edition you have.
Yeah.
If you get confused about those types of things.
Sure.
Yeah. It's I'm still working my way into these, and that's the thing about collecting as much as we collect. Actually getting a chance to watch stuff is sad, but just I collect more than Andrew does. In a more.
But if you've got it, the potential is always there.
It's always
Right.
there. I'm not gonna let myself let this get away from me. So I go ahead and buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still played catch up with a lot of things. Like I'm still buying things from 2021 and 2022.
Yeah.
I'm always forever playing catch up, which I guess is kind of part of the game of collecting as well. There's always
Sure is.
something there. You always leave
Oh
something.
yeah,
behind.
curiosity is always up. Yeah.
I think as long as you get there before it goes out of print, you're
Oh
all right.
yeah.
He waits to the last second, as he's doing with Fascination.
I've waited. I mean, if we weren't talking right now, I'd probably order
He'd be
it. But
ordering it
I'm
right now.
patient. I'm patient.
He's right now. He's secretly panicking.
Yeah, it's like talk faster, Steven. I'm asking questions.
Shut up.
I got movies to buy.
Kind of like a
Is this
gambler
an
in you
interview or is this a fucking bio?
I'm gonna
pic
put it. I'm
movie
gonna
that
put it
we're-
in my cart right now as we speak.
But
Yeah, Steven, you made some stuff up.
Can I just say one more thing about the Rolands because it's interesting because I like the segue that Andrew made. Kind of like going out of the Michael J. Murphys into the Rolands. I think it's interesting because I think probably for you guys, certainly for us in the UK, because these titles have actually been around a long time on home entertainment media. So VHS for me, that was the first time I experienced them when a company that you'll all know, I'm sure, called Redemption, that was based in the UK, did these and a whole bunch of Francos and some. The first time I really got exposed to Jali was through them as well, and they did great work. I think what's interesting about our decision to do the Rolands is that it's not a discovery in the same way as Michael J. Murphy is, but I guess we thought it was an interesting way, to really do justice to the presentation. I mean, they've always looked pretty good, but I think we always felt we could go a bit further, and 4K always reveals more. And, the opportunity to do definitive versions was something that we really wanted to do. But I think, again, there's something about maybe thinking that the folks who follow Indicator may not necessarily all have known who Roland was. So there was an element, even though they've been around these films, there was an element of rediscovery, or the idea that someone could discover them for the first time, or maybe someone had been sitting on the fence but follows us and kind of appreciates what we do. And I think we've seen some of that. You know, some of the feedback we see on forums and we get via email and social media sort of is kind of saying, you know, I kind of knew these were out there and I knew they existed, but I've never gone near them. And wow, you know, so that's gratifying.
Oh, yeah.
It's not quite the same thing as the Michael J. Murphy, but it's sort of a similar drive, you know.
Yeah, and using your fan base to pitch this filmmaker or any of these filmmakers that are really, you know, undiscovered is a good thing. And also just you know, being that we feel like I think most of us feel, a lot of us feel this way, that 4K is maybe the last format that we're going to go through. So, you know, it does help make things definitive, you know, that, hey, this is the best this is going to get. And
that's a double-edged sword because the pressure is hugely on for that, you know.
Exactly.
Definitely feel the fire burning under me.
Yeah, well, it's a good though. It keeps you hungry, keeps you trying to put out the best work that you can, and I know you guys always strive for that. That's why you don't put out a release until you know it's right, you know. We saw that with Michael J. Murphy. You needed to make sure it was all there, all right, the way you wanted it before you could let it go. So
I think that's a big test. I think that's a big testament to the team of people that Sam's put around him. Really, I think they're all of the same ilk. You know, they're
perfectionists, every one of them. Yeah,
and I think that's a massive help.
Yeah, we talked to Michael Brook. Michael Brook's one of them.
He's, yes, indeed.
Of course,
yeah. So, but you know, of course, we could talk Roland for the, you know, because you got new announcements of Roland. We'll get back around to that near the end. But another one here that kind of relates to some of your recent news of releases is your first Santo set.
Yes,
Enter Santo here.
Did really well.
So, yeah, your first kind of leap into the Lucha Libre genre.
Exactly.
And of course, when we talked to you last time, you were like, yeah, more Mexican films are coming. And here was the first of
we
that.
weren't lying. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, God, I'm glad that they didn't lie to me. That's the first thing I thought. I was like, I could not take it if John and Sam lied to me.
I was actually thinking of that earlier because I had just got the Phantom Monastery. Like I said, I'm always catching up, and I'm like, oh, that's also one of your early U.S. releases. Really was that and La Llorona, getting into Mexican cinema, and it's like not a lot of. I'm not even besmirching any other boutique label or any other label in general. I'm just saying not a lot of Mexican cinemas really explored a lot when it comes to Blu-rays and 4K releases or DVD releases in general. And I was just wondering, you know, why did you guys decide to kind of go that route? Was it just like you had accessibility to it, or was there just a general interest in Mexican cinema, or what was the idea behind all that?
Well, I guess different things happen for different reasons. You know, a lot of the time we are digging into catalogs, studio catalogs. That's informed by both John and mine own personal interests. You know, we'll kind of make a wish list, try and go after those things. There are certain things like The Man Who Had Power Over Women and Impossible Object, which are just about to get released, which kind of been long time obsessions of mine for various reasons, particular interest in British cinema. I think the Mexican stuff, I'll be honest, I didn't really know much about the Mexican stuff. It's been a real joy to work on because it's an education, you know, getting steeped in the extras and the watching these beautiful new restorations and having access to Viviana, who's part of the legacy of the filmmakers behind some of these movies.
I saw her post in the Facebook group about the new announcements today and how her connection to that.
Yeah, she's great. And to be honest, the connection to her comes via a friend, a restoration artist, a guy called Peter Conheim, who's been working on these pictures. He works for Nicholas Winding Refn as well, or works with him on some of the NWR stuff. So it's just all kind of connections and, you know, plot points. And at some point, those guys reached out and said, look, we've got these great new restorations of these films, and we went, oh, wow, I don't know, I've never seen them. Let us see them, and we were just all in essentially. And I think on the back of that, we then reached out to some other rights holders. We did the Mexico Macabre set, which is a different set of right holders, but it's in the same. There we go. Look at that.
Yeah.
Here's one I made earlier.
We talked about that on one of like the best kind of releases of
our favorite releases of 2023. This was definitely on the top of my list, because it just I love genre stuff like this, and anytime I see fun genre stuff like this from other countries, I love kind of seeing what the influences are, seeing how it goes both ways, influences from them, influences from the States, like. And
that whole backstory about how all of the technicians had all worked in Hollywood, and they kind of took their skills back home and started making domestic. It's just fascinating. It just expands your understanding and appreciation of the whole history of filmmaking.
That's what we're talking about. That's what I said earlier. You're filling in the blanks, the little cracks that have been missing. Some knowledge. Where this little thing here is like, oh well, some guys went to Mexico, and we need to make a history map here, a documentary on film history, and fix it, because there's all this stuff. It's like, man.
Did you ever see those Robert Frame? Is he called Robert Frame? Rock Family Tree books. I mean, this is probably John. Do you remember those?
No, I don't know.
No, they were amazing, because they would literally plot every guy who was in every different band. That family tree is amazing. But the same thing for like key people in Mexican cinema, and that'd be amazing. It'd be fascinating to see.
I'm living for anything you do Mexican, and because the lucha libre genre is just so fun. Like it's like they're superhero films. And we'll get back to it later, but I know me and Andrew both got a chance to watch The Batwoman. And I was like, man, this is just like, I love it. It's a spy movie, like so many genres in one. I just
looking as well. I think really nice looking film.
Yeah, I think I can't wait. I can't wait to get the disc, because I mean, of course, I watched it from something that was on streaming. That was it was like not the greatest quality. And probably the subtitling was like I don't know,
unreliable.
But, unreliable.
No, I think we'll be improving on those things. I think it'll be. I think you'll be pleased.
But
so we've got more of that stuff as well. Again, I'm not lying to you. We've got more of that stuff.
At this point, I can't. I'm not thinking that anymore.
Right. Well, there are. I just going into the original Enter Santo that you had put out last year. I didn't realize there was a whole like deep history of just that character and all of the movies and all the things that he was in, and how much of a cultural icon he was. Was and is in Mexico. Like in Mexican entertainment history, I didn't realize how much of that.
The films, there's a whole, as you say, this cultural importance before the films even come around, and the whole story as well about him being convinced to be in the films and how that all went around is very interesting. And there are just so many of those films, so many Santo movies. It's and spin-offs, and and female wrestler movies, and so on and so forth. Fascinating, but as you say, why would we necessarily know about it until we start being exposed to it, and then
and I can just say from firsthand, from those of you listening and watching, trying to track down those movies to watch without there being a physical media release or some type of release in general was really difficult to find Enter Santo. Not only because of the general quality of it, just to find it with actual English subtitles, you would be surprised how difficult that is to do. Just because it just wasn't available really, and now it relatively is. But some other releases that you guys had put out last year, I guess, kind of going back into a little bit of what you were doing with Michael J. Murphy is, Stephen, do you have the From Hollywood to Heaven, the Lost and Saved films of the Bond family?
You mean this one?
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I never remember what Stephen has, but this was another one where it's like when you announced it, I'm pretty sure it made a lot of people scratch their heads, like, what is this? Where's this come from? What, what is this? How did you find these
How'd you
films?
stumble upon this box of goodies?
Well,
Yeah.
where the credit should go to with that is Jimmy McDonough. So he's the guy who he's all over the set. I mean, it's his baby, really. He also wrote the huge, as it were, coffee table book that Fab Press put out. I don't know if you've seen that, but
I've seen it. I want it, but
it's a thing of absolute beauty. You know,
massive.
I'm gonna get it.
Super big.
It's huge, beautifully embossed, beautifully finished. It's glorious. But Jimmy had been working on his research and a deep dive into that whole history of the Ormonds for like 15, 20 years before it culminated in the book and the box set. And again, the connective tissue there is really the fact that we'd worked with Nicholas and on a couple of releases. We did Spring Night, Summer Night, which is one of my favorite movies that we've ever published.
I really like that. Yeah. Along with Night Tide is the...
And Night Tide, exactly. Yeah. So we've done that a little while ago. And for one reason or another, everything just came to a head in terms of the journey that Jimmy was on. And, you know, he'd made an agreement with Nicholas and with Fab Press to do this book. But the logical thing was also to do a box set of the films and actually put the context around that as well and have them come out at the same time. So John and I just thought that was great. You know, we wanted to be a part of it. Again, a little bit like talking about the Mexican films. I was like, Ormonds who? You know, and then I got shown these films and the nice restoration work that Peter had done on the kind of the religious, the Eustace Peck, the Baptist films. Just amazing. I'd never seen anything like it before. So
I was going to say we had John from Indicator Cast on one of our other shows, The Unwatched Pile. And he brought up in his Unwatched Pile, like the way the show works is we bring a movie from our collection that we haven't watched. We watch it, we discuss it, and then we pair it with something in our collection that we have watched. And he brought out one of the films from this set. I think it was
one of the Estes Perkle ones. One of
the Hell blood from shit. Come on, Andrew. Come on, help me. Help me with these obscure movies.
Yeah,
Burning Hell. That's it. And I watched it after he talked about it, just to see what he was, because the way he was describing it, I was like, I need to pop this in the player. And I was like, man, this is like, dude, this brought me almost back to my. This sounds bad, my childhood in a way. I live in North Carolina, so we're kind of in that like Southern Bible Belt. Baptist, you know, like, and I went to a church when I was probably like in like 12, 13 years old. That was very much like, you're going to hell if you into stuff. You're into shit like this. You're into, you know,
you collect Blu-rays and UHDs.
Yeah. So now I can see it very vividly in this movie of how I felt on the inside when I thought about I was listening to AC/DC, and I thought in the images of them in hell, that's the stuff I saw in my mind. I was like, I'm gonna be there if I keep listening to Highway to Hell. So I was like, there is a clear, obviously, vision with these films that these guys had, and it's just once again a unique sector of cinema that is like, God, like,
I mean, that whole story is just extraordinary. You know, that they went from making exploitation cinema, they have a near-death experience, and then they find God. So they essentially make exploitation religious movies. It's amazing. And you know, the fact that so many people saw those films, but they never played cinemas. They just, you know, they were just played in church.
They're going to now. We're going to be in churches across America. I'm going to go on a tour. But like, guys,
just
you guys like to watch Christian, like churches like to watch Christian films that go out in theaters. I'll be like, I got some that you maybe never seen, and then you know,
I mean, they are mind blowing. They're so great. I mean, they're just so full of amazing imagery, and they kind of play like horror movies, don't they? You know, some of the imagery, the worms, and extraordinary. That's all down to Jimmy. And Jimmy, obviously, you know, he wrote the biography of Andy Milligan and Russ Meyer, and you know, he's a great guy.
Yeah. So like with the book companion, how is that something that's doing so well that you can that's going to be kind of something you explore for other releases in the future?
The idea of our carrying the book on
like
the
a book
website as
companion.
well?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that was just a kind of obvious thing to do, really. The release dates were timed. It didn't really have anything to do with Powerhouse so much as Limewood and their decision to kind of do a mirror deal with the Fab Press guys.
Gotcha.
But I think it worked because I think it's for some people it's the obvious thing to do to pick the two up at the same time, and if there's some kind of little mechanic that makes it sweeter, then it makes sense. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, those things tend to work. I mean, we did something with the Todd Slaughter set that we released just before Christmas, which again, we had amazing feedback from, and there was a book available, and the pickup rate, and look and behold, he's got one of those as well.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, it fell from the sky.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. So
and again, the response from people was amazing. I think the people who put the book together were just amazed at how many copies were sold. So yeah, when it does lend itself, it makes a lot of sense, and I think the customers really appreciate the fact that we go that extra mile to try and do things like that.
Yeah, and it speaks to that idea that we've been coming back to time and time again, which is the discovery thing. So if someone's interest is piqued, then it's almost like, well, why not go all the way? I mean, we can outline a lot of the story and the history in the book that we put in 100 pages and the various commentaries and so on and so forth. But inevitably, there's always a bit more that you could learn, and it's all right there in the book. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, you're not the only company that not relies, but like uses that discovery as a method, as a way to get people's money. I mean, it's still a business, business. You still, you have to look at it in that way,
right?
And, but
marketing
like,
is always
it's always a part of it. So like Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, these are companies that kind of delve into areas that most people don't know about. And they're being very successful at it, and I think you guys are doing that as well.
They're doing an amazing job, all of those guys.
Yeah. And specifically the Todd Slaughter set is something that kind of goes back a bit to kind of the roots of the early days of Indicator putting out like older films from a certain era, which I think a lot of people became very accustomed to what you guys were putting out, and think that's what you guys were going to be known for. But obviously now we know it's much more diverse, much more widespread.
Yeah, you busted off the chain. You busted off the chain. Now you're everywhere.
Really, I think the theme is the kind of journey of self-discovery for a lot of your fans and customers and people and film fans in general. And that Todd Slaughter set is also rather unique and kind of going along with this theme of discovery, because it's another person that I don't think a lot of people knew about. I don't think people knew who Todd Slaughter was, who the actor, director, and that character and just that world of the macabre. It was kind of like Hammer before Hammer horror, you know what I mean? Like Hammer horror before Hammer horror, and such unique part of British cinema that I don't think a lot of people knew about.
Absolutely, Andrew.
So what a unique set there that I don't think a lot of people knew about. Or
they know now. It's out there now.
Yeah, and those
they're gonna know.
It was a case that it wasn't necessarily impossible to get to see the films, but what you could see was not of great quality. They were essentially kind of, I suppose, old TV masters, maybe from the when would it be, 70s, 80s, perhaps. So again, being able to get the films from the original nitrate negatives from the archives at the BFI and do new restorations, and then put all this new context around them, put them all in one place.
Yeah, that must have been quite a chore.
A gift horse, really.
Yeah, that must have been quite a chore to do, because I mean, just based off the top of my head, that those films must be some of the oldest films that you guys have released from the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, that's true.
So when you go back that far, I think we like all of us know as film fans, a lot of those original elements are perhaps long gone. Perhaps just don't exist anymore. I mean, I always talk, bemoan about the silent era and how a lot of those movies are just completely gone. Let alone finding high quality or relative quality elements to put out a release. I know oftentimes a lot of people complain of why there isn't a 4K release of a certain film or a certain television series, and oftentimes it's because the elements for that type of release don't exist. They're not there.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of collectors understand kind of those things where sometimes you can't put a Blu-ray release or a 4K release out just because you can. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You got to have certain check marks that you got to go down to make it possible.
Yeah, well, we were really lucky with these because, as I say, these. I mean, I think with the exception of perhaps one film where we had to go from a positive element, they were all negs. The Face at the Window, I think we used Kino's restoration from a few years ago, but 6 of them were newly restored from negs, and one of them from a print. I think it was Sexton Blake was the print. But even still, I think it looks great. We did actually get the neg for that one, but it had a lot of mold damage, which just ended up with whatever you try to do to it in terms of restoration, it made it worse. So we had to just try a second element, and it looked great.
Awesome. Andrew brings up something I wanted to mention to you guys. I don't know if I might have. Hope I didn't ask this question last time, but it was on my mind looking at your catalog, and he talks about the early days. You spent a lot of time in this realm, like older films, and what I notice a lot with a few companies, that Criterion comes to mind, is they have created these sub labels like Janus Contemporaries to focus on newer films. And is that something that you guys have thought about when it comes to your future of releasing, like not necessarily creating a sub label, but delving more into more recent films as part of your catalog? Is that something you've thought about?
John, do you want to jump in on that?
I think what we mentioned on the Indicator podcast that we did a little while ago, the time element that it takes to put this stuff together, and I think we mentioned that we're scheduled to 2025. I don't think we'd have the time to be able to really, we're at max now, really, in terms of if you look at how many releases we're putting out. But that's not to say that, we do get approached for various, but really, I guess the word stick to what you're good at rings to mind. And, unless it was something really exceptional, it's not something we've sort of discounted, but, it'd have to be something a bit special, I think, for us to try and work that into our schedule, our already busy schedule as it is.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I know you guys, you're, as Indicators grown in age, the kind of evolution of what you guys put out is kind of continued to happen. And I just wanted to know if maybe like that was something that is always a potential. I'm not that I need it, because you can get it anywhere else, but just getting the Indicator treatment on something that's more recent, not necessarily something that has just released, but something that's in the last 10 years, like something that maybe hit a certain hit to a certain level for you guys, and maybe is influenced by some older films that you're like, that's unique, that hasn't really gotten a release.
Like John says, I think it's not a case of dismissing the idea of
sure.
And I think if something came, I think we sort of surprised ourselves when we did Gaspar Noé's Irreversible, because we were like, wow, this was made in the 90s or whatever it is.
I was going to say, like, what is the earliest? What is the newest film they've probably done?
Yeah, you just read my mind, because I was thinking like
I think Irreversible may be it, unless John, I don't know, maybe.
I think it is. No, I think it was. But interesting, your comment there, Stephen, where you said the Indicator treatment. It's amazing how many emails you can imagine that we receive. Just generally, people saying, "Oh, can you release this film? Can you release that film? My favorite Joan Crawford film, or whatever." And everybody, they've learned it from your podcast. The Indicator treatment is phrased so many times in emails. Oh, I'd love that you did, to release this film and give it the Indicator treatment. So maybe it's a strapline.
It was us. That was us.
Clear that.
It's a copyrighted phrase.
Well, it is now.
It is now. Stephen, put it on a T-shirt or something.
Making money right now.
But it makes a lot of sense that I always see that in comment sections about any type of release, but of course indicator as well, where it's like everybody always wants to throw in, put this movie out, put that movie out.
Yeah.
And part of it, maybe a little bit not annoying, but just like, I guess they respect you so much as a label and what you do in terms of the quality of your product, that they want to see their favorite movie out in.
Yeah, we definitely take it
put
as a
out by you
compliment.
guys.
I mean, if anyone's listening and they've ever proffered a suggestion, keep them coming. I mean, from time to time they definitely stick. I mean, we can't do everything, obviously.
Well, obviously,
but, we would if we could.
This
and
idea
a lot of people do suggest a lot of studio, as you can imagine.
Right. And I think they just kind of throw out
politely go back and we just politely go back and say, listen, these guys don't want to play the game, I'm afraid. They're just
that's the hard
interested.
part about newer films too, is that most studios are going to hold on to that stuff
for a long time.
Newer films, it's going to be held on to, especially with streaming services. They're going to want to keep, and of course the rights are different between streaming and physical media, but like,
right. And when it comes to like modern films, I'm assuming that the studios assume that they can still make as much money off of them themselves as they want. You know what I mean? As they can.
I don't know. That philosophy's changing.
But in terms of like, how oftentimes now do you see a modern studio license out anything newer and from their catalog? You know what I mean? I mean, we're starting to see 90s and 2000s stuff now, like indie stuff. But, I'm talking like 2010s and, even something like that.
Well, as more places are shutting down their physical media, I mean, as sad as that is for people like us, like Best Buy going away from physical media and seemingly other places around the world doing the same thing, it's sad, but can you see this as potentially an opportunity for the boutique labels to swoop in and be like, hey, you don't want to put that out? We'll do that.
I think it's interesting.
I mean, historically, we've never really been in the space of these people that are shutting down. Generally, the supermarkets. That was never. We dipped our toe in the water once, which wasn't very successful. But generally, those people. And the problem you've got with, and I think that's one of the real world problems with all that getting deep into supermarkets is it's a high risk game, because you're creating all this, you're making all this product, you're putting it into the supermarket. If it doesn't work, they all come back. So it's a real gamble in a way. So from our point of view, it's never sort of a gamble that we were prepared to take. And obviously, out the sector of the business that we're in, it wasn't of real interest to the supermarkets. And obviously HMV are still going strong, reasonably strong in the UK now. We probably saw that, the store on Oxford Street has reopened just before Christmas, and we're hearing it was a very successful opening, and business is booming, as they say, particularly on vinyl, from what we hear. So the whole way in which you get your product to market has changed since we started 7 years ago, and we just try and keep on top of it all the time. I think our real focus is on our website and the customers that we that buy from us directly. We do try to service them as best we can. We throw in the odd little freebie. We throw in the odd little bit Justin Carswell card. The odd little trinket that excites them. So
and the odd exclusive title.
I was going to say your web exclusive title.
Yeah, I mean it's from when we set out 7 years ago, and how much of the business was through our website to what it is now is a massive difference. But I have to say we would have struggled to be still around, I think, if we hadn't have gone that route. So it's that key to us now, and that important.
Yeah, and I can say, just from our perspective, and probably for perspective of a lot of our listeners and watchers, branching out here to the U.S. market, kind of branching out more internationally, I think has been beneficial for us as consumers and collectors. I could definitely say that from our perspective. I think I hinted at this when you guys had kind of decided to branch out when you first came on. How is that going in terms of sustaining over here as well as sustaining in the UK? Is that going well, just from a business perspective?
I think it's going okay. I think we've definitely got a feeling we could be doing more, I think, in the States. And I think that's just a question of, I suppose, broadly speaking, marketing and PR. I mean,
Could you send me one of them nice little cardboard shelves I see in your pictures?
Oh yeah.
Just send me one of them, and I'll sit it. Yeah, the standee, and I'll sit it outside.
Well, that would work. You see, that would change everything for us. That would just change everything. Yeah. No, I think what we've done so far is great. I think we've really laid great groundwork. We've got a catalog now, a back catalog that's starting to swell and become significant in the States. And I think, there's always a delay, really. There's something like an 18-month, 2 years before you really hit your stride. And we've got some plans that we're putting into place this year, which we hope will change things around. I think it's fair to say, John, that we'd like to see the US doing better than it is, but it's doing fine. It's doing well enough. We're very happy with the results so far, and it's always great to be able to put things out in both the UK and the US. So it's something we're still going to continue to strive to do, for sure.
That's definitely something.
Well, if you guys have got ideas or suggestions of where we're missing a trick in terms of getting to the US consumer, by all means, share that.
Well, I can tell you,
share that information with us.
I know you guys have talked with Diabolic. I know Diabolic's a place that you guys have communicated with. We've told you before. Orbit DVD is another place that I think a lot of people are going to. That's another outlet for online consuming and in-person consuming, because they are a literal video store.
Great.
In my state. Yeah. So,
wow.
So I visited. I did a video with Mark McLeod over there. You can go see that.
I remember that.
Yeah,
well, you can take the standee down with you when John.
That's what I'm saying. I can take it there, and it'll always be there.
You should go on tour with it, Steve, and just take it.
That's what I'm saying, guys. I can change your stance in the US. I can go on tour.
Absolutely.
It's interesting now, because you are saying, like, kind of getting, spreading the word, getting indicator out there. I know obviously you probably noticed better than anyone how it's expanded greatly over the last 2 years, just through reputation and word of mouth alone amongst collecting community. I know when Steven and I discovered Indicator, we started noticing other people discovering it. We heard it from them, they heard it from other people, and it's really kind of spread. And obviously you've seen all that because of the demand for the catalog. And I know every time you guys have one of your sales, there's just a buzz. There's a super buzz on the flash sales. People start buying. People start posting their hauls on Instagram and all other places like that, and posting videos on TikTok and whatnot.
Yeah, and at the end of this past year, you guys decided you weren't going to do your point system anymore on the website. That's true. So cashing out them points, I was like, and I was like, picking stuff. I was like, yeah. So there's always kind of a fever pitch or a buzz every time. There's a new announcement every single month. I feel like it's all about, like, those, you guys are doing all of the things you need to do consistently, to keep your name in people's minds, to keep the product out there, to keep the buzz going, because that's kind of what it is. Because our attention spans, I think, now as a society, especially here in the US, amongst, the internet world and whatnot, you move on to things very quickly. You move from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. You just scroll on your phone down a feed, and whatever pops up, you just move on. It goes through in and out of your head. So Indicators kind of always stayed, I think, with us. Most definitely, at least Steven and I. Your logo's rainbow colors. You can't be more like
representative of everybody.
You can see everything. We don't miss your logo.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't know. Other than just, of course, expanding to other places, like other stores. I wish I knew the best. I wish I was into marketing.
Very much.
No, listen, we didn't come here for you to solve.
We're going to solve. No. We're going to solve this.
I know. We came here to solve world hunger, and all of that. And solve Indicators problems all in the same night.
Which one of those is a first world problem?
Yes, clearly. They go hand in hand, really. But just to get into kind of, kicking off the year, like we said earlier, you guys have releases announced all the way up through April. So a quarter of the year, really.
That was a nice surprise. That was a nice surprise yesterday, where they were like, "Oh, here's our announcements. Here's also the next month's announcements." And I was like, what?
Yes, if we'd have sort of followed the usual pattern, we would have made an announcement in December. But for various reasons, we decided not to, working with the the rights holder about some holdback preferences that she had in relation to screenings and so on and so forth. And in the end, we kind of felt that was fine. You know, we could let December do its thing. You know, people are focused on other things. Christmas.
I was gonna say, everybody's got the holidays. It's nobody.
Right,
It's
exactly. So we felt like we could turn, as it were, a negative into a positive, and just come out with a big bang. Which, judging by what you're saying and the reactions we got yesterday, is exactly how it's gone down, which is great. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. And so once again, you prove to me that you didn't lie. More Mexican stuff.
Yeah.
And and more genre line, of course. We've already said that. Yeah, that's going to keep coming, keep rolling.
Right. And I would also say, for me personally, you know, I love classic old Hollywood stuff. So you guys have, you know, gone back to those roots and whatnot. Things like Dorothy Arzner's film Honor Among Lovers, Love Me Tonight, as well as Desire with Marlene Dietrich and Gary Cooper. So, you know, you going back to kind of, like I said earlier, those roots and those things for the old Hollywood lovers like myself. But then, of course, mixing in some newer things like Christopher Lee's film Jinnah, which was a film that I had actually heard. I heard about it faintly. I didn't realize that it had come out in the late 90s. Actually, we were just talking about what your newest film is. I think that came out.
Well, that might be 1998.
And it was super late. And Christopher Lee later on in his career, an interesting kind of quasi biopic of a film.
And of course, we've done a couple of other films by Jamil as well. We're kind of big fans of his stuff. A few of his earlier ones went to the BFI, Towers of Silence, and so on, which are also great films. But yeah, Jinnah was always one of those things that we've been talking about. Eureka did their edition, I don't know, like 7 years ago. It's essentially been out of print for a couple of years. We just sort of felt it's an important film. Got a great cast. Christopher Lee often spoke about it as being his. I think he always put The Wicker Man as his favorite film that he'd done, but in terms of his performances, it was always playing Jinnah. So yeah, I think it's an important film, and it's a great film, and just part of that rich mix of all kinds of stuff that we're doing.
Yeah, it was a film that I know when Steven and I talked about it, I had to give a little bit of not a history lesson, but like put some type of historical context about it of the time of Gandhi, of the independence of India and Pakistan and all that kind of stuff, because it is a film that deals with a lot of those things. It doesn't quite give you all that context. You know, me being a history buff and a history guy, I always feel like I have to put in those gaps every time we cover this.
He goes into teacher mode.
I do, and I try to like summarize it and kind of think like, how would I like teach this to some people who don't know or have no interest in history? How would
not that he's a teacher, but he did go to college, so he feels like he got that college brain.
You know, I tell people I went for 10 years, so you're gonna hear me talk about something. You're gonna hear me talk about it. If I had to study it, you guys are gonna hear about it. But I've always been fascinated with things like that. But Stephen, do you want to talk about the more recent things? Or
I was going to say a couple of the other ones that was recently announced, Patrick, and Snapshot, which I saw Snapshot. I was like, ooh, like first of all, I was a little bit mad because I was like, damn, I got that damn Umbrella release from Umbrella not too long ago, and it's like, damn it, now I had to buy this again. but I don't, you know, this edition looks amazing. It's of course a 4K, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm buying it. So yeah. I already bought it. So, but Patrick, Patrick was the one I was like, you know, I'd heard about Patrick getting a release. Initially, I had heard Severin was going to put out a release, and that never happened. And here it is. And I'm like, here it is. Okay, well, this is the one. I'm getting this one.
Yeah.
Please tell us about that.
I think it's a very similar case to the Roland thing. Really, it's not that they've been out of circulation. They've had nice additions, you know. Here in the UK, 88 Films put out Snapshot. Vinegar Syndrome put out Snapshot in the US. Severin, as you say, had their edition of Patrick. They're films that have been in circulation. I mean, Patrick obviously is quite a big film. I mean, an independent film, but actually at the time of its production, it sold hugely around the world and was distributed widely. But again, it's just another one of those things where we thought, I think we can just add something. In the specific case of Patrick, what we're doing is presenting 3 distinct and discrete cuts of the film. I think essentially for the first time really on home entertainment media. So it's got the Italian cut, which is a cut down, but obviously it's got the Goblin soundtrack as well, which is kind of fascinating for anyone who likes their Italian cinema. And then the US cut, which is different again, quite radically different again, and also crucially has voice actors, dubbing all of the actual actors. And one way and another, these things haven't been out there. So in addition to it being really quite, I think, stunning new 4K from the original NEG, from the National Film and Sound Archive of Australia, it's got all this other stuff around it. And then we've been working with Mark Hartley, who obviously is the director of Not Quite Hollywood and the massive brain when it comes to Australian cinema and cinema history.
Yeah, that documentary that seemingly gets put in every release about Australia.
Yeah, well, it's just got this huge cache of all of these interviews he did for that film. So as a consequence, you've just got all this material with the producer, Anthony Ganane, or the various directors. Someone like Richard Franklin, who, of course, is no longer with us. Yeah. He's got it. He's got endless...
That is the most... That's the most popular documentary of all time that nobody talks about.
It's so good.
Hollywood.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Because again, it's another fascinating story, and I like to think again on our releases, we've got some new sort of scene setting appreciation pieces. Yeah. One of which is the one on Patrick, which is like about half an hour long, and it's fascinating about that whole history, about what drove Ganane in what direction, what the prevailing wind was in terms of Australian film production at the time, how he changed that up, how he was critical of it, how he wanted to have a more international outlook. So again, just fascinating history around it. So yeah, I think we only ever want to do anything where we think we can bring something to the table. There's no point in just putting something out again. If it's already been out, leave it. We can do other stuff.
Yeah. I like appreciation.
Indicator treatment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Let me make sure I write down.
Where did we get that from?
Nice. I'm keeping track of how many times
another royalty payment to you,
so I can bill you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's appreciations like you're putting on this. That's one of my favorite supplements that I see on discs. So when you get a bunch of voices together to talk about how this film impacted them. I love commentaries. I love things, but I love hearing kind of in a way, the populist voice of how this impacted culture at the time that it came out. So because
like the Mexican stuff, how could we actually know that unless someone imparts that knowledge to us, and then we can start to understand, and then we can, if that piques our interest, we can start to fill in the gaps and go further. Like Andrew with his partition history.
Very much so. Very much so. I like putting things into the context of the time in which they were made, because I've always feel like, I've said this a million times on the podcast, that movies are very much a reflection of the time in which they come out, or the reflection of the times in which they're made. And oftentimes, just in the case of, that time in cinema, 1978, Australian cinema, what was going on there? It's the exploitation era. It's a very specific time with very specific movies are being made in the Australian outback, and all this kind of stuff is going on. So it also, I feel like this is going to pair up with Road Games for all of those who have that movie, or the edition from Indicator. This I feel like goes probably hand in hand with it, both directed by Richard Franklin.
Of course, exactly, Richard Franklin. So it's the same director.
I'm excited. I'm excited about Australian cinema going forward. I'm sure you guys got a few more in the can. Some that you're working on, along with what Second Sight's doing, trying to get the Hitchhiker out. I'm like,
that one should be coming sometime this year, hopefully. So moving on from there, Stephen, I guess you could go into kind of the stuff that was just announced.
So the Batwoman, guys. It's the one I had a chance to watch before. Once again, we're heading into more Lucha Libre genre stuff.
That's
mixed in with like a spy movie. Like it's all over.
Got a bit of everything.
I mean,
pop cultural mix.
Yeah, it's cool, man. And like it really shows you like, I mean, like one of the things that might not translate well today is that all the women characters have to be in like bathing suits the whole movie. Like her outfit is like just a bathing suit like all the time. And I'm like, well, that's just the times, guys.
There's such an interesting kind of there's a weird charm about the movie where even when the Batwoman is wrestling, she's got to be in her Batwoman costume. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which would be probably very uncomfortable. But it's like, oh, that's how you know she's the Batwoman. She has to wear a Batwoman costume.
Yeah. But some of the visuals in that and in the Panther women as well. Again, just talking about the way people are dressed, the Panther women with their kind of black masks.
Yeah.
But then they're adorned with all this eye makeup and these huge lashes. It's quite striking. It's a very arresting image, and that scene where the little girl's looking at them kind of like, oh, who are these women? I mean, really fascinating, beautiful looking films. And again, just like you say, films being a product of their time, just fascinating to think of Mexico giving birth to these films at the time.
Yeah, it's very much part of their like culture, and that's what the stuff that Andrew and I just kind of like feast over when it comes to the features and things like that we want to know how important this was, and like we're learning something.
Nora's doing incredible work on working with all of the people who have all of the knowledge, some of the best informed Mexican cinema experts out there. She's putting some great extras together on these.
Awesome. Love it. And of course we couldn't go another, you couldn't just let us have that. You were like, dude, another month.
Yeah.
Boom.
April.
More Roland, guys.
Before we move on to Roland, let's if you don't mind, I just kind of just mention the fact that we feel it's very exciting to be able to put the kind of sexy version of Santo and the Riders of Terror, which is
you're right. I did
quite recently.
That, yes.
Only quite recently, and thanks to Viviana and all the work she's been doing, come to light. So you're very excited to put the brilliantly named Lepers and Sex on. And, essentially as a kind of extra feature, really, but it's a full feature, and it's beautifully restored, and it's very exciting to put the two together as a double bill, because the history on that is fascinating as well. Okay. The family of El Santo refuted that this existed for many, many years. And in fact, to be fair to him and to them, may not have even known that it existed. It was something that the producers put together. It was for export. This is days before you would know what was happening in a foreign country, because there's no internet and there's no, home entertainment media. And so that went out and played all kinds of territories without their knowledge. And so it's, again, just fascinating to be able to see that. In the same way that the Hammer movies, you would have, for the Japanese and the German market, you would have slightly more explicit material. I mean, this is by no means extremely explicit, but it has still just got us an 18 certificate of the BBFC, which we always think is quite cool. We don't mind that. That's all right.
Yeah, it adds a little bit of something to it, a little bit of flavor.
Yeah. Right. It's something different for a different market or audience, really. I know the way in which to market a film.
It was to kind of, literally just throw some nudity and violence in. And, for those markets, like, I mean, I don't know the reasons why, but some of the foreign markets kind of.
Well, we know as an American market, of course, because we're.
What is it? But
we like nudity and we like violence. So
very true. But what is interesting is that, different countries have different, ratings, different. Things that they tolerate in film versus not tolerate in film. There's always, famously the UK, had the video nasties and all that kind of stuff. A lot of films that were, banned from the UK for many, many years, in the United States, there's a whole nudity and sex thing is a no-no, but all the violence you can, and you're just fine,
That's right. The kiss of death, that was the R rating,
Yep.
It's very weird here what gets by and what doesn't, as it does in other places. But that's very fascinating, kind of a double bill feature and kind of a little interesting historical extra, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched the trailer, the little preview that you guys put out on your Indicator YouTube. Go to the YouTube and subscribe to their YouTube channel, because that's a good place to get all the kind of like the teases that you need.
Yeah,
for what
we're
they got coming out.
just on that. We're going to be making more of an effort to put something there every month. I think, one of the things we learned last year with doing the Michael J. Murphy and a few other bits is very often what we see is people saying, "This looks very interesting, but can anyone point me to a trailer?"
Yeah,
And and I think that's something we didn't really think about enough. And I think now going forward, if we are going to be doing these sort of discovery titles, and it might be the first exposure anyone's had, if they can just see a couple of minutes and feel the quality, and all of that stuff.
Get a sense of what these movies are, what I mean?
And what they're going to look like, and what people can expect.
Yeah, and oftentimes even going back to kind of hunt down an original trailer on YouTube or something, some old trailers really don't tell you anything about the movie, so you have no idea really what it is. Some of those old trailers just not great in general. Just like trailers from then and now are completely different.
Now the trailers now just tell you too much.
They do tell you too much. They do tell you too. I guess it depends on the audience, really. Modern day youth audience, they want all the information now. They don't want to have to wait.
That's not what we. Just to be clear, that's not what we've done either. We haven't done a kind of bam 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 trailer with the deep voiceover and
no
the punchy music. We just kind of decided just to let a scene play out and give the flavor of the thing.
Which I love. It's with the Santo and the terrors of the
The Riders of Terror. That's the one.
Yeah, exactly that. I couldn't remember the title. But I watched the trailer of that, and when it plays a scene out where Santo has to fight this other guy, it turns into a fight scene. I was like, oh, this is so fun. Like, I love this. I love the Western atmosphere for this character. That was what I was drawn to first off. Of course, the artwork is amazing. I love the artwork on the front of this thing. And I was like, I looked into it. I was like, oh, it's a Western. I was like, this is all me. So
great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, going into Roland. Okay. So we got two more Roland releases.
Yeah. We started with Roland and we're going to come full circle back to Roland.
Full circle, guys.
Yeah.
It always comes back to Roland.
It really
more
does.
Naked vampires, guys.
We were just talking about gratuitous nudity, and I'm like, that's John Roland's thing. It really is. For not even like entertaining purposes, he makes it like work into the plot of the films. I was telling the guys before we started going live and stuff like that I did a double feature of the nude vampire and is it Demoniacs?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Or Demoniacs. Yeah.
Demoniacs, I think is.
Yeah, Demoniacs sounds okay.
That flows better.
Yes, it does. It also comes out better. And it's very interesting because both of these films are kind of right at the time in which you can almost get two different Rolands in this. You know what I mean? You get his second film in The Nude Vampire, which is very similar to his first film, the Rape of the Vampire, which you've already put out in 4K and on Blu-ray and stuff, where it's got that atmosphere, it's got just that vibe, very little dialogue in it.
Yeah,
and then
a bit surreal, a bit kind of kooky.
Very surreal, very weird. You don't know what's going on. There's always those Roland kind of hallmarks that are there. There's a weird cult doing weird things. There's vampires involved, gratuitous nudity for no particular reason.
And there's that kind of feel of the silent sort of serials as well, like the Fouillade stuff.
And you get the supernatural vibe to it. The only thing this movie's missing is like a fog machine, which I know he loved to do in his other films, it's the only thing that's missing. And they could have used it. Even at one point, there's a beach scene towards the very end. I won't spoil it, but it's like he also did a beach scene in his first film as well. So you get those vibes. And
that beach is like he kind of went back to that beach and pretty much.
And he always finds like some type of giant mansion or castle to shoot in. That looks like it's abandoned, or they make it look like it's abandoned.
That's budget filmmaking right there, man. You gotta get that production value.
I guess so. It's already built in, really, to just the atmosphere, and then you get the Demoniacs, which is this kind of supernatural, kind of rape revenge fantasy horror movie. That's also a period piece as well, because it has to deal with like pirates and things. It's so uncanny, and it feels like it's a different movie from a different director, but it's Jean Roland. So unique and so interesting how you can get different flavors of the same director with films that came out only within a couple of years of each other. I just a couple of questions. The reason in which you guys are kind of jumping around in terms of releasing the films, is that just due to kind of production and things like that?
I think what we didn't want to do is just kind of start at the beginning and go through. I think we wanted to, I think as with any filmmaker, there are it's all relative. The sort of the bigger hits, the lesser known titles. And I think what we wanted to do is kind of play it in such a way as you would have a mix. So you'd have on the one hand something that was quite well known, maybe something that was less well known, but if you put the two together, it sort of just enriches the experience. And also I think it goes back to something we were saying earlier. I think there will be those people who already have some awareness of Roland and have maybe seen them maybe a few times, like someone like me has when watching different editions and different Blu-rays from different companies. So I think we just wanted to kind of let people just kind of bathe in what he does, really. If kind of a better way of putting it.
You know what I mean? It's interesting because like something I feel like this is just me guessing. I feel like some people will like a certain flavor of Roland versus some of his other stuff. So if you don't like Demoniacs, maybe you'll like the Nude Vampire. If you like the Nude Vampire, maybe you won't like Demoniacs. It really all depends on which type of maybe mood you're in, what type of film you like. It really all depends. It's so, like I said, it's so fascinating how all of this kind of creates this tapestry of Jean Roland's career, which went for a very extended period of time. I want to mention earlier, went, for those of you listening, it went from the late 60s to the 2000s, I think. It went from, that's a significant amount of time. So I don't know how much of that we'll get to see from Indicator specifically, but we're seeing a good chunk of that early time frame. At least all of his 70s work, I think, so far, most of it.
The films to come still have that variety. So on the one hand, there'll be Requiem for a Vampire, which is, for me, one of the better known ones. I don't know whether that's just my experience of seeing them or if that's a commonly held position. But then you get something like Grapes of Death as well, which is the Brigitte LaHaye. Again, a very sort of slightly going outside of the vampire space, doing something a bit different, maybe a little bit more like a zombie movie, you might say. But again, not very easily categorizable because it's Roland, and he's sort of at the same time as doing something specific, he's doing something general, which is his own thing, the fantastique thing that he loves. So we've still got a few things that speak to a bit of diversity in what he did, which is, I think, great.
Awesome. Yeah, I just love looking at him on the shelf. Like as I brought him out earlier, I love seeing him up there, and I can't wait to dig into them. Part of me almost wants to wait till they're all out before I start digging. Just to go at him like full on, kind of like when the Bergman set came out from Criterion. You get all this stuff at once, and you're like intimidated by it. I want to be intimidated by Jean Roland. Going
the intimidation box set. There's an idea.
Yes,
that's a good title.
Yes.
Maybe we should change our name to Intimidator.
You get Schwarzenegger to be the logo. Intimidator.
Just get John on like leaning in.
Well, guys, as we're going to conclude here, are there any teases, any variety you want about what we got coming up for 2024?
John, have you got any beans you want to spill?
Yeah, I think we did announce that we have a new deal with Sony Pictures. Probably the last deal that we'll be able to do, given the way that the studios are working these days, and that's got some quite amazing titles in there. So,
could we say, without actually saying the words themselves, there's some great sex comedies in there. So there's some titles that we've been going after a long time. There's a nice little series which you may or may not be able to guess at, which we're really excited to be able to work on. We'll be working hopefully with the same team and contributors who worked with us when we did the Adventures. Hint, hint.
And I guess
again,
and if you're a Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor fan,
Okay.
I think you're going to be a very happy bunny.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good
There's
tease
a real mix
there.
of stuff. There's classic Hollywood.
Yeah.
There's some kind of older films. So we've got some sort of 30s detective series of films.
You've got my interest peaked.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
I know I don't want to ask
Warhammer.
This. Oh, no,
Warhammer.
I don't want to ask this, but maybe directly, but because I don't know how much you can say. But
Yeah.
the Columbia Noir series, will that be continuing in the future?
Well, the
through
Universal
this new Sony deal.
Universal.
I mean, you don't have to say it, obviously, if you can't.
There's not a lot of that stuff lined up. I mean, there is.
I know you guys put out so much.
There is a set that's will be announced very soon that is ostensibly Colombian noir, but it's a very particular. It's very focused.
Gotcha.
I mean, you know, the Bogart set was a focus set in terms of it was all around him. This is a series with a common character in it, which we're very excited to bring through. Again, just films that from our youth and all of our film watching over the many decades is just something that we've always fancied working on, which has had a release in the States, a DVD, but never a Blu-ray. So it's exciting for us to do. Universal, there may be another volume yet. Yeah, don't hold me to it, but we certainly got some more Universal Noir titles to work through. Yeah, and
of course, Stephen, all of these will receive the indicator treatment.
Nice. That's a good.
That's
a good way to end
another
it.
5
I was
cents.
going to say, I don't know how to end this any better than the way you just did. The check will hopefully be in the mail soon with all the trademark.
But I mean, the main thing to say is, you know, rest assured that the mix will be the kind of healthy mix of, you know,
discoveries,
genre, international, classic Hollywood.
Yeah,
I mean, we just releasing films that we just think are great. That's the common denominator, really.
Yeah, that's the
I just like to imagine these releases in John and Sam's bedrooms as children. You know, you're just like, oh, let's watch Patrick. If only they knew what they were going to do many years.
If only they knew. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but guys, as usual, thanks for your time. Thanks for what you guys do, helping many of us discover, you know, new sectors of film, as we've talked about, and just giving us some of the best, I think, physical media releases out there on a regular basis. You're consistent. Your quality is always consistent. You're always transparent with everybody about this. You know, of course, you come on here and talk with us for an hour or so and help us better understand what you're doing and just show that you care about the community. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your
support
and thanks for loving the films. It's great.
Of course, man.
Hope to speak to you again soon. Take care.
Of course, anytime you guys want to talk, we are here for you. So you guys have a good night or good day. I guess it feels
Looking
like
forward
night
to the
here.
night, I've got to be honest, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You take care.
You too.
All the best.
You too.
Cheers, Andrew. Thanks, Stephen.
See you later.